Morning. Please sign into the chat so that we have a record of who was here. Would really appreciate that. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning.
Jessica, nice to see your face. Sarah, nice to see yours too.
Likewise, Noreen. Happy New Year, everybody.
You too. We are in 1 minute. We are going to get started. This one for you guys, because a lot of the information that we have is more generic for you. May not run the full hour, but it depends upon how many questions you have and how many times I have to say, I don't know, that's a good question. So we'll see. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. I believe that I know everyone that is on this call, but if not, my name is Noreen Landis Tyson. I am a consultant for Joint Initiatives and filling in informally as the UPK manager for the moment. We have some members of our team here that are on this call. Drew, if you want to go to the next slide, I would appreciate it. Speaking of team members, Drew is running the slide deck. He is the Foundation's Universal Pre-K Assistant. Heather Mayhew, one of our family navigators, is also on this call. Ryan's here. That's great. Ryan Berry, our data specialist, is on the call. Carla Rivera Ramirez is also on the call, another family navigator. So you guys are lucky. You have all 5 of us this morning. And Shay is still on maternity leave with her new little boy. So good for her. And I hear she's adjusting well to being a mother of 3. God forbid. Okay. So today's agenda is the welcome and introductions that we just did for you. We're going to talk about UPK and El Paso County by the numbers, just to be sure that we all have the same context at this point. We're going to talk about year 1 reminders and clarification, and then we're going to pause for questions on what's happening year 1, which is the current year that we're in. Then we're going to go on to year 2, and some of these may not be relevant to you as school districts, but some may, or some will be. Then we're going to go through some frequently asked questions, and then we're going to discuss any additional questions that you may have. So that's our agenda for today. So Ryan, do you want to come on camera and unmute and talk about where we are by the numbers, please?
I am happy to do so. Good morning to all of you. It's good to see you all. This is just kind of a general summary of what we're looking at. UPK by the numbers in El Paso County. This is data that we have captured as of December. The applications, that number is actually the current number of active applications. So we are at 179 providers at the moment. We do have 79 childcare centers that are participating in UPK in El Paso County. We have 68 school district-based programs. All of the public school districts, all 15 in El Paso County, are participating. And we have been in the process of finalizing some more family childcare homes, and we are now at a total of 30 family childcare homes that are participating in El Paso County. The total number of active applications that we are at right now is 9,787. Around 80% of those are for 4-year-olds and around 20% of those are for 3-year-olds. The total number of registered seats has increased a little bit since the last time that we spoke. It is now up at 5,197. The total number of 4-year-olds that are actually enrolled in that status in bridge care and enrolled is 4,350. The total number of 3-year-olds enrolled through the various school district programs is 1,046. And there are still 844-year-olds at the moment who are unmatched with a provider.
Does anybody have any questions? Thank you, Ryan. Does anybody have any questions on any of those numbers? We're providing that to you so that you have the context of what the entire county looks like for us for this particular year. And I just want to say that having Ryan on staff, being able to collect and analyze this data allows us as JI to be able to make good decisions about where we try to increase capacity, et cetera. So going into year 2. So thanks, Ryan. Really appreciate it. All right, let's move on to year 1 reminders. And I should tell you that I sent this slide deck to Angela McGibbon this morning. She said she was going to put it up on the UPK webpage at Joint Initiatives. So it is there, it will be there, and the recording of this will be there for anybody who wants to go back and look at it again. So if you want to follow along on the slide deck, you can certainly go to www.jointinitiatives.org/UPK. And it's there. Okay, so UPK eligibility, we wanted to remind you that only children who were 4 years old prior to October 1, 2023, the year before kindergarten, are eligible for UPK during the current year, regardless of whether they turn 4 after October 1. This may seem like duh, but we have had providers who thought that as of a child's 4th birthday that they were eligible for UPK. That is not correct. Children who are in their 2 years before kindergarten during the current school year can only receive UPK support from their home school district. Non-school district providers can still serve these children, but it is without UPK support. So you guys should all know that by now. And by the way, the asterisk for October 1, obviously school districts can choose their own cutoff date, and some have a cutoff date that is different than October 1, like District 49. So that's the caveat there. And that's why it says year before kindergarten, not 4-year-old. Okay, so it's a year before kindergarten. New applicants, families can still apply for the 23-24 school year, the one that we're in right now, year 1. JI is reviewing new applications weekly, and we are sending them to the top 2 providers that the family chooses. If the if the family has chosen 7, 8, 9 different providers, then we're sending them instead to the family navigators, Heather and Carla, for them to contact the family and see if we can narrow down their choices based on seats that are available. So for you as school districts, we're assuming that you are running wait lists and that you could potentially have a seat. But the bottom line is if the family has mixed part day, half day, and full day on there, then it really makes sense in terms of service of the family for us to send them to a navigator so that they can talk to them first. And then, and if that family then says, hey, I really want my school district. So, I know I may have to sit on a wait list, please send me there. Then we're going to send you that information. And we are only allowed to send you the name of the child, the name of the parent, and the contact information for the parent. We are not allowed to send date of birth. We are not allowed to send address. So it would behoove you at that point to call the family and get the rest of the information that you need to determine whether or not you're able to serve that family. Next. And by the way, at the end of the year 1, we're going to be able to answer any questions you have about the year 1 stuff. So let me get through this, and then we will answer whatever questions you have. And Barb, at this point, they're allowed to pick up to 10, and they have been picking up to 10 for months now. And so it's quite overwhelming, quite frankly. All right, drops and unenrollments from your program. The state is pretty adamant about making sure that that providers are notifying us and unenrolling within 1 week if the child withdraws or stops attending. So you can notify us by email, and we would like the reason, if you know it, for the unenrollment so that we can make a note in the child's application. There's a difference between the child moving to another district and unenrolling with you, and the child moving out of state or out of the country, in terms of how we follow up with the application. So if you have the reason, we want to know the reason. Unfortunately, any notes that you are able to put in a child's file, we can't see. So you have to send them to us so that we have a record of it. So if the family stops communicating with you, just drops off the face of the earth, you must document the attempts made to contact the family, and then you have to unenroll within 1 week if they are actually enrolled. If they are not enrolled, then we're going to want to withdraw the application. All right. So again, no matter what the status is, if you can see it, they're probably in accepted status, if not in enrolled status. And so one way or another, we need to get them out of that status. So please let us know that that this family is MIA, and that that you've made an attempt to contact them, and that we need to make that family change the status of that family. So the provider may continue enrollment for a child as long as they attend sometime during the payment month. So it's not at all uncommon for a family to leave the area for, particularly military families, to leave the area for 2 weeks or a month. And you are able to continue to have that family stay enrolled with you, and you will continue to be paid. But if it is more than a month, they have to be unenrolled. So they have to attend once during that enrollment month in order for them, that payment month, in order for you to keep them on your UPK rolls. And the state has said if the family leaves for a month, must be unenrolled. The provider can save the seat for the child, if you would like to, by contacting us and reducing your UPK number by 1. And then increasing again when the child returns. And so you're going to contact me to reduce or increase seats. And I'm saying me, not because the rest of the team isn't able to do that, but because I'm handling school districts. Okay, so that's the way for you to save a seat if you would like, but you're not going to be paid for a month that a family is not attending and not providing services. And unfortunately, you can't backdate the unenrollment, but you can list a future unenrollment date. So that that way, if you've been notified that a family is going to unenroll in your program 2 weeks from now, you can go ahead and unenroll for a future date if you want. That's up to you. However you manage your unenrollments is up to you, but we want you to know that you do have this capability if that's how you want to handle it. Next, please. Payment schedule and issues. Once again, payment issues should be handled by creating a ticket with Metrics IQ. And, they're actually fairly good at responding. You may not like their answer, but they're pretty quick in responding. So that is the only, we have no control over payments whatsoever. So you can contact us if you would like. You can certainly copy us on anything that you send to Colorado UPK payments, but we can't do anything about it except provide clarification when Metrics IQ asks for it from our perspective. So want to remind you again that the payment report is pulled at the end of the day on the 15th of each month. And in this case, students eligible for payment the following month must have a completed enrollment form with a start date that is by the 15th of the payment month. And this is new. So, example, if a student has an enrollment form completed on January 15th and their start date is February 14th, the provider will receive the full month payment on February 8th. Okay, so you can put a start date down the road and you will still be paid on February 8th. Okay, so again, this is new. So you don't have to cheat on your start date, is what I'm trying to say, in order to get paid. Okay. And according to the payment schedule for the 23-24 year, the last payment for year one will be on May 9th for children enrolled as of April 15th. That has not changed. And while there was some initial discussion about maybe changing that for this year, I have not heard any further discussion about that. So this is what I would count on. And then once a provider's UPK calendar is ended, which by the way families should be really clear as to what your UPK calendar looks like. Enrollment over the summer months, if this applies to you, is at the complete discretion of the provider in accordance with their published rate schedule. There is no UPK support over the summer months. Okay, so let's stop there and see what questions or additional things that we should have covered that we didn't. So Grace, will private providers ever get to provide services for 3-year-olds? Certainly not next year. That much I do know. They're going to school districts. Who else has a question? Is there any additional clarification needed? If this is accurate, we will not be paid from 4/16 until the end of the school year. You will be paid on May 8th right, for the kiddos who 5/8 for the kiddos who have been enrolled and started up to May 14th. So May is your last payment.
And Noreen, when you talked about continuing enrollment, so you get paid for that month, do we consider that month the 15th? So if a student leaves and we want to make sure we get paid for that month, we consider the end of that month for payment purposes to be the 15th or the 14th?
The end of that month would be a start date of May 14th.
Okay.
Okay. Enrolled by April 15th, start date being May 14th.
Got it.
Okay. And Carol, I'll go back and look at that slide and correct it if it's wrong. Sorry. What other questions?
Noreen, there's one that says, does this mean the application has been changed to allow more than 5 choices?
Yeah, I already answered that and said, yes, they are allowing up to 10 and have been for a while. Thanks, Heather. Any other questions or anything that we didn't cover on year one?
Could you clarify, how are we getting paid for students who are attending through May?
You're getting paid on May 8th. That is your last payment, and that is for May.
Okay.
So if a student enrolls, their first day is April 20th, they won't be paid that year. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Unless you enroll them before the 15th of April and put their start date as April 20th. Then you will be paid for them in May. That's why this is new, okay?
Added. So the real trigger is the enrollment, not the start date.
That's it. It's two parts. the enrollment is one part. And so any kiddos that you're going to serve through May, you've got to have enrolled by the 15th of April. Close of business on the 15th of April. And then their start date when you enroll them has to be by the 14th of May for you to be paid. So you put that in when you enroll them, you're gonna, I assume you have a start date in there. I've never enrolled a kiddo. But I assume you have to put a start date in there, and the start date that you're gonna put in has to be before May 14th in order for you to be paid on the May 8th for that month. So they're gonna pay you, so Jane Doe has come in and walked in with you, okay? And they say, you know, I want to take advantage of the last month of school, of UPK, okay? And they're eligible to do that. Then you are going to contact us and say, this family has an application in the system. They want to come to us. Will you put them in accepted status? And then we put them in accepted status and send them to you. And by the 15th of April, you must enroll them. And their start date has to be before May 14th in order for you to be able to be paid on the May 8th for that month. Let's see. Grace, are you from a school district? Grace. All right. Who can we speak to regarding not being given the child's date of birth and their address? When calling parents, they are very skeptical about giving us information. You've already talked to, or Jessica, Barb has already talked to the right people with regard to that. So it is what it is. And the state are the folks that have decided that, and it's under personally protected information. So don't know what else to say about that, but it has been elevated to the right people. And I got a call confirming what I did. So now it's at the state level already. Stacy, do we still submit IEP forms if students start after that time? Will families still complete an application? Anybody who is eligible for UPK support for year 1 has to have an application in the system. Okay. And yes, you will submit any IEP stuff to Angela Dellin as you have been doing.
Okay, I was just thinking about our C2Bs that we still have coming throughout the school year.
Okay. Yeah. So Grace, I'll talk to you after this is over. Just stay on if you can, because this one is for school districts. So I want to make sure we address the school districts questions. Okay. Any other questions about year 1? And again, once again, you know, if you have, I mean, you've just recently or should have recently gotten your list of payments for January. So, you know, if you're having any issues with what you're getting paid, submit a ticket to Metrics because they're the ones that have to address it. Okay, let's go on to year 2. All right. So I want to remind everybody about the principles of UPK. The UPK is for children in their year before kindergarten. There were allowances made in the legislation for 3-year-olds because of the transition from the Colorado preschool program to UPK. And of course, those allowances for 3-year-olds are based on the school district being able to serve 3-year-olds based on the historical funding allowance that you have been given for 3-year-olds. And so this is for children in their year before kindergarten. So the principles are to ensure continuity of care if at all possible. So if a child is already with you and they want to stay with you, there's going to be some changes that are going to be made this year that's going to be able to support that a lot easier than it was in year one. Among new registrants, there is a philosophy of equitable access to a variety of high quality early care and education providers of their choice. So it's a mixed delivery system. And the equitable access is important because when new registrants are coming in, one who don't qualify for priority placement, it will continue to be based on a lottery system. And so that everybody who wants, who chooses certain schools or certain providers or a mix of schools and providers and rank orders them has equitable access, an equal chance of being able to match with the highest ranked provider on their application. So that has not changed and it will not change. It is actually in the legislation. So, so remember that as we start to go forward in terms of what we think 24-25 is going to look like. Mitigate the cost of preschool by supporting a minimum of 10 hours per week, and that's for a part-time program, for 36 weeks free of charge. All children in the year before kindergarten are eligible for 15 hours per week, provided that they are in a program that actually offers them 15 hours per week. Okay, so every 4-year-old, their baseline eligibility is 15 hours per week, but they may only be in a program that offers between 10 and 14 hours a week, and at which point they're only going to be, you're only going to be paid the part-time rate. And we want to support school districts and administrative units in serving children with IEPs. So those are the basic principles of UPK. So please keep that in mind. Okay, next. So the programs and rates for 24-25, there's still going to be a part-time program, and that's between 10 and 14 hours per week for a minimum of 36 weeks. There is a 2% increase for this year. So these are approximate numbers because I didn't have the exact numbers for this year sitting in front of me. I did the best I could with this, but it's really close. So it's going to be $483 per month times 10 months. And if somebody is enrolled in this program under UPK, no, they cannot be charged for that program. It's free. Okay, half-day program between 15 and 29 hours per week for 36 weeks. It's approximately $603.50 per month times 10 months. The 15 hours are free, and families may be charged for hours between 16 and 29 per your published rates. Okay, and then a full-day program is 30+ hours per week, 36 weeks. And it's 1,067, almost 1,068 per month times 10 months. 30 hours are free if a family is eligible for 30 hours, and families may be charged for hours above 30 hours. So let's go through this bottom part just to clarify this rate. So this 30-hour a week rate, this rate is only for those children who qualify for 30 hours per week of UPK and are enrolled in a full-day UPK program in which at least 30 hours per week are being offered. Otherwise, the provider will be paid for the 15 hours per week, and the family will be responsible for the remaining hours of care according to the provider's published rates. For the 24-25 year, providers must publish their rates in their profile so that families have that information before choosing a potential UPK provider. That will be enforced this year. It was not in year one. Okay, projected timelines for year two. So here's what we know so far. So mid-January to early to mid-February, providers will complete your UPK setup profile to be included in the priority enrollment period. So if you as a provider want to be able to take advantage of what you're going to see in a minute is the priority provider priority status enrollment, then you have to be in the system during that first timeline, which is mid-January to probably mid-February. So providers can still join after this period, but will miss the opportunity for priority enrollment of children for continuity of care. So bottom line, plan to start your setup in within a week or two when it opens, and we don't know the exact date yet, and to get it done within that initial period. Mid-February to March, there will be pre-registration for children with priority status, and that's what they're calling it, pre-registration. So these are children who are, sorry, folks. These are children who are currently attending with your program. And I'm putting up here the definition that they have given. So notice it says currently attending with your program, or children with siblings who are currently attending your program, or children of current employees of your program. And when I say current, this is meant to be those folks that are in that status during the pre-registration period, not down the road, not sitting on your wait list, not paid a registration fee and sitting on your wait list. It's people who you are currently serving, because this is meant to be continuity of care. Okay. April to June, and then that will not be, so placement there will not be based on an algorithm. So you're going to want to put the minimum number of seats that you're going to want to put in your setup is at least for the kids who have priority care. If you don't do that, then there's going to have to be some method set up to decide which priority kids go into your seats and which ones don't. And that's not going to be pretty. So if at all possible, that's the minimum number you want to put in there. All right, April to June will be open registration, and family matching will start. So April to June, families who do not have priority, and even those who do but miss the priority piece, will then go into a matching algorithm, just like this year. Okay. And families will choose and rank their preferred providers and will be matched to open seats based on a lottery number and an algorithm, just like this year. Okay. And July on will likely revert to walk-in enrollment, where families work directly with a provider who has an open seat. This year, that didn't happen until like September, October. It's going to happen July on this year, so that you guys have more control over getting those final seats filled. Okay. And then children with IEPs, so as is always the case, we don't have the specifics on this yet. You may even know more than I do, but what we have been told is that you will work with your, with the state to enroll children with IEPs. I think you're going to have more control over that this year. One. Okay, so preparing for provider setup. So everybody is going to have to set up everything again. So everybody will have to register, plan to register beginning in a couple of weeks when this opens. Okay, there's going to be new questions asked, and a lot of this is around clarity for families, so that your profile is clear about what it is you're offering, what your schedule is, et cetera, et cetera. So, so yeah, plan to have to redo everything. Okay. So they have put out that the minimum information that is needed for registration is each location's kindergarten eligibility date and school district. So private providers will be able to choose the kindergarten cutoff date that they are using to register children for UPK. That was not the case this year. In year 2, the private provider will need to say, I'm using October 1, or I'm using September 15th, or I'm using whatever. And that's what they're going to be held to for eligibility for kids as well as payment. Okay, so we'll be working a lot with the private providers who are in school districts that don't have an October 1 cutoff to determine what makes the most amount of sense for them in terms of a cutoff date. So each location's preschool program type, as well as the languages of instruction. So the program type is part day, half day, full day, extended day, etc. Okay, so you got to have all that planned out before you start registration. Okay, the number of UPK seats, children who are in their last year of eligibility prior to kindergarten. Okay, those are the UPK seats available in each program and in each location. You guys, as school districts, have the ability to manage your 3-year-old seats. You always have, or at least you did this year. So again, you should continue to plan for that. But in the UPK system, to the best of my knowledge, you will not need to declare the number of 3-year-old seats you have in the location. Okay, it's only 4-year-old UPK seats. Okay, and then contact information for your authorized representative, whoever is authorized to sign the provider agreement. So for consultation prior to completing your setup form, please reach out to me. And if you need to talk through this or say, what would happen if I did this, or how should I determine how many seats that I want to put in, or whatever, I am more than happy to chat with you about that and talk it through. Okay, I'm probably, if we do Calendly invites, I'm probably going to start including some of our team members on some of those calls, so that they have the opportunity also to learn as we go about how we are doing this. Okay, so just so you know. All right, next. So we're going to start to go into some frequently asked questions. I have 3 or 4 pages of these, and then we will go back to any questions that you have at that point on year 2, because some of them may be answered through this. All right, so do children who are currently enrolled as 3-year-olds need to re-register for the 24-25 year? Yes. All families will need to register for the 24-25 year, as some new questions will be asked and the application will be simplified for families. Everybody must register. Okay. If they decide at some point to pull 3-year-olds out of the UPK system, which I don't think they're going to do, they looked at it, but then couldn't figure out how to do it. That will certainly be communicated to you as school districts, because the 3-year-olds belong to you. Okay. But this is where we are right now. All right. Will a family be eligible for priority enrollment if they are on my wait list but not yet attending during the priority registration period? No. Families must be currently attending, or have a sibling currently attending, or be a child of a current employee to take advantage of the priority enrollment status. I will tell you that I think that this is probably going to be on the honor system, and I'll leave it at that. What information will be required on my profile? This is going to be something that will be available in the next week or so. But in addition to the information that was listed on the previous slide, you will be required to publish your rates, so that families will know what they will be charged for any additional UPK hours. This has been a significant issue this year. It has been a real surprise to families when they thought that they were enrolling in a full day program, and for whatever reason, they did not expect that they were going to have to pay. And now we're trying to make sure that that's clear, but also providers are going to be held accountable for actually publishing what they're going to charge for those additional hours, so that families have the ability to be able to say, I can or cannot afford that. So that's not going to apply to most of you, but I think you should know that that's happening. Okay, next page. Oh, okay. Wait a minute, I'm confused. Do I have to participate for the 24-25 UPK year if I sign up and then decide that it doesn't work for my business? School districts, please don't opt out. We'll just leave it at that. Does the state decide when my 36 weeks of UPK begins? No. You get to set up your own calendar, okay? But the expectation is that providers will set up a schedule that at least somewhat aligns with the school year as UPK payments run from August through May. All UPK providers should decide on a UPK calendar that covers 36 weeks of UPK and publish that for families. So families need to know, here's your UPK weeks. And by the way, if you count them up, it's 36. Okay, so again, it's transparency for families. Do I have to make up snow days and holidays? No. However, if a provider is closed for a full week, that may not be counted in the 36 weeks of UPK. The more you can publish for the family, the better. So that's not a change for this year. That I'm just clarifying this because our private providers in particular, many of them have been quite confused, and we're using these same slides for the 1 o'clock and 6 o'clock. So next. Can I increase or decrease my seats after I have submitted my initial seat verification form? Yes. However, it is easier to increase seats than to decrease seats, particularly after the matching algorithms have begun. And again, if you need help in determining the number of seats that you should offer, please call me. If I have UPK seats that haven't been filled, can I fill those seats with non-UPK children? Once you've decided on the number of UPK seats that you will offer, those seats belong to UPK unless you contact us to ask to have your seat numbers reduced. We are constantly supporting families to find a UPK seat, and it is incredibly frustrating to us when we send a family to what we think is an open seat, and then that provider says, oh no, I don't have open seats, okay? And so we have to have accurate numbers in the UPK system. So if you end up needing to decrease seats so that you can put 3-year-olds in them in UPK seats, as long as there's nobody in those seats, you can do that. Call me, call us, and let us get those seats decreased for you. But don't put anybody into those seats until your seats have formally been decreased in the UPK system, please. Okay, next. How do I do a walk-in? How do I get a walk-in child enrolled with me while the algorithm is still running? So you don't. Until the walk-in period starts in the summer, all children must be run through the algorithm to be matched. And matching will take place based on their lottery number, not when they applied. This year, there actually will be a supposedly set in stone schedule of when the algorithm will run. And you will all know when the algorithm is going to be run. Okay, so that you can plan for that in terms of staffing. Supposedly, it will not be nearly as often as it ran this year. There will be like 2, 3, 4 periods where the algorithm will be run after the open enrollment starts. But during that period, your UPK seats belong to UPK. Okay, so this supports the core value of equitable access to the provider of the family's choice. After the walk-in period begins, the same thing will happen, we believe, this coming year that is happening now. You will then say, hey, we have such and such person that we want to get in. I have a seat. Put them in. Okay? All right. Can I decline a family that has been matched with me? In general, no. Some providers have certain declinations available to them based on the requirements of their program. So you guys have a lot more declination opportunities than private providers do. As long as when you registered, you have said, you know, I'm not serving kids that are out of district, or, you know, something of that sort. So when you register, you have to say, these are the parameters of who I'm going to enroll. And then those are the only declination reasons you can use. Okay. There are some exemptions to this, which can be discussed with the UPK staff member at JI. And for your information, there may be a limited exception for family childcare teachers since they are actually providing services in their home. But you know, this particular piece has not changed from this year. Next, is there another one? Or are we done? Okay. So let's stop here and let's go back to the chat and see what we have that maybe we have an answer. When do bridge care applications end for the current school year? You know what? We don't have a date on that. And the bottom line is, I think you can stop enrollment whenever your little heart desires. You know, when you want to stop enrolling, stop enrolling. But if,
Sorry, this is Stacy. I just, my question is more about when the new application system opens in mid-February, end of February, will our C2B kiddos still be able to go in to this current school year's application and apply? Or there's an overlap, there's going to be an overlap. So what does that look like?
Yeah, good question. My answer at the moment is I don't know, but I would assume that there's going to be parallel systems run, but I won't guarantee that. I don't see how they can do it any other way, quite frankly. But we'll ask the question. Somebody write that down for me, please. Somebody on the UPK staff, write that down for me, please. So that's a good question. When will we be given more solid dates? Jessica, your guess is as good as mine. Opening is supposed to start, as I said, in a couple of weeks. And so, you know, I think they're going to have to come up with a solid date relatively soon. But we don't have it yet. So, Carol, hold on a minute. Let me go through the chat and then be happy to answer your question. Will returning students have to complete a new application? Yes. Will the number of students have to include students with IEPs? That is specific to you guys at this point. We have not yet been given information about how IEPs versus gen ed students will be handled. Here is my guess. My guess is that you will only be putting gen ed seats into the UPK system, and that you will be holding out your IEP seats and managing them separately. That is my guess, but I do not have a confirmation on that yet. And you will be told that before you have to start registration. So, and hopefully we'll be told that before you have to start registration. Please clarify sibling priority. If child 1 is attending in January and they have a 3-year-old sibling, 4-year-old sibling, contact information for consultation. Grace, I'm going to answer your questions a little bit later, please. This one's for school districts, if you don't mind. Do we have to have our calendar set when we publish our profile? Our district sets the calendar later in the spring. Good question. No, but I think as soon as you can publish your calendar, the better. And as long as your calendar is going to meet the, meet the 36-week minimum, I think you're good. But that's a good question. We are only releasing general education seats, correct? Year before kindergarten general education is what we're giving you. Stacy, I believe that that's the case. Will the child ID number stay the same for returning students? I have no idea, but that's an excellent question. So, Drew, Heather, somebody write that down, please. From a military district with a lot of mobility, we request that the UPK system remain active for this year throughout May. Yeah, I got it. Of course. Okay. Grace, is not a problem for you to be here, and I'd hate for you to have to go through this again. But after we're done with school districts, you can stay on for a moment, and then I'll try to answer your questions. When did this change to weeks rather than hours for the school year? I thought it was 360 hours. So it has always been, your provider agreement actually says 36 weeks. At least I believe it does. And so 360 hours is the minimum you can provide to be a UPK provider, but it's 360 hours over 36 weeks. So it's 10 hours per week. And for as long as I can remember, it's been 36 weeks. If that's not the case, then I'm sorry. Okay, Carol, I think you had your hand up first.
Sorry, took me a second to get the unmute.
Mhm.
It goes back to the students with IEPs.
Yep.
You were saying to do the registration, but I'm interested in the profile. Do we include them in the profile numbers? Because we still want the payment for them, but we don't necessarily want to have them on the profile because it makes it seem like we have seats that we don't.
Yeah. You're going to get paid for your IEP folks differently, just like you did this year. So, you know, again, you're going to have to sit tight on that because I don't have enough information to give you accurate information. I have asked to be given when I'm sure that there will be a, it probably in the next couple of weeks, there will be an opportunity for school districts to chat with the state about this. And I have asked to be included in that as a silent observer so that I can hear the same thing that you are. And then school districts that are not on this, we can advise. But unfortunately, you're going to have to sit tight on that because we don't have any information on it. I'm really sorry about that.
Not your fault, but thank you. And we just want to make sure that our kids with the IEPs are treated as well as our gen eds. So
Yes, of course. Of course. Lori?
Yeah, it's my understanding that as a school district, because we have the exemption factor, we're saving a seat for a student with a disability, that we include all of our seats for general education and special education in the platform because we get funding from CDE for special education services, but we also get general education funding from CDEC. And so I think if we don't put them in the platform, we won't be able to get that general education funding as well. At least that's the way I believe it's operated this year.
It is the way it has operated this year, and I think they're changing it for next year. So I think that the confusion has been that the number of declinations you have had to make because you were saving gen ed seats. I mean, saving IEP seats. And so I believe that that the scuttlebutt has been that they're going to separate out IEP seats from gen ed seats. And yes, that has its own issues, and I get that. But again, above my pay grade, but I believe that this is what they're going to do, that they're going to ask you to say, how many IEP seats are you going to save in this classroom, and then put the gen ed seats in the UPK system so that that can be based on an algorithm after priority enrollment has been completed. And that they're not encroaching on IEP seats. And yes, you can tell me exactly what the issues are with that. I can tell you what the issues are with that, but I still think that's the way they're going to go.
Well, I won't waste anybody's time sharing my concerns about that, but do you have a timeline on when that decision will be made?
It's going to have to be made before profiles are published. So I assume it's got to be made within the next couple of weeks. But you know, as soon as I say that, they'll say, okay, let's just get started on this and we'll figure it out later. So my cynicism is coming through, and I'm very sorry about that because it's not appropriate. But I don't know. I simply don't know. I wish I did, but I don't.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Who else? Thanks, Stacy, for the misspelling. We'll take care of that.
I also want to chime in really quick here. That UPK number where you can reach me and I will direct you either to Noreen, depending on your questions, or maybe if you have families that have questions, the number to call is 719-828-1514.
Oh yeah, I forgot the X's in there. Actually, why don't you go in and fix that right now? You've got that live, so go ahead and fix it for me, will you? Thank you. Sorry, folks, the state did not have any slides for this time around, so I had to do them all myself, and it didn't happen until late yesterday afternoon, and I was brain dead. Okay, these are the resources that are available for you. I want to remind you all, and I know that you guys are all doing this. You know, the UPK newsletter is really, really, really important. That is your tickler in terms of things that you need to pay attention to for UPK. And in most cases in that newsletter, we're providing you a link for more information to the JIUPK page. So I would strongly suggest that you bookmark that page and look at it every once in a while, or wait until you get the newsletter. And then look at it. So it has the most up-to-date information. There are going to be provider guides that are going to be available for setup, and they're trying to provide much more information this time around, so that on your own time you can sit and go through the guide and do what you need to do. And then of course there's going to be other state resources. And then you know, we encourage you to continue to attend the monthly roundtables. You have the information here of call or email the UPK staff. You can certainly call me for a consultation. That I prefer an email. And then, you know, make sure that you're keeping your email contacts up to date with the state, so that you're getting the information that the state sends out. It is not at all uncommon for the state to send something out to you that we get a couple of days later. So we're trying to fix that, and I think they're working on fixing that. But the bottom line is, you maybe get it before we do. And if you don't have your UPK address up to date, that's a problem. All right, what other questions do you have? Comments? Thanks, Lori. Thanks, Melissa. We appreciate your patience. We really are doing the best we can here with the information we have. We try to be as responsive as we possibly can be. So thank you for recognizing that. We appreciate it. You can stop the recording, Drew. Anything else for today? Yeah.